So the Raiders and Christian Wilkins situation just took a very weird turn, with a legit NFL insider sharing a pretty insane reason that potentially played a role into the Raiders cutting ties with him. And honestly, if this really is why, Wilkins might actually win some of that money back. So I'm going to break that crazy situation down, talk about several extensions, multiple unfortunate injuries, and more right after. All right, you know football is back. When there's so much news, you're almost overwhelmed. There's so much to talk about. We'll get through it quickly between players signing extensions, others getting injured, and everything in between. Let's start with the guys who got paid, though, because yesterday the Chargers and left tackle Rashawn Slater agreed to a 4-year, $114 million extension with a whopping $92 million guaranteed. This now makes him the highest paid offensive tackle in NFL history, as he's set to bring home $28.5 million a year. Well deserved for the former first-round pick, who was just the second highest graded tackle in all of football last season, according to PFF, for what it's worth. So now they have Herbert's blindside protector locked up all the way through the 2029 season. Then on the other side, their 5th overall pick from last year's draft, Joe Alt, is looking to build off a strong rookie campaign. Offensively, they're in a pretty good spot with guys like Herbert, Slater, and Alt, then Ladd McConkey, and obviously we'll see what Omarion Hampton can be in this offense as well. Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball, though, because the Vikings and safety Josh Metellus finalized an extension over the weekend. It's a 3-year, $36 million deal with a max value of $42 million and includes $25 guaranteed. Pretty impressive for a guy that was a 6th-round pick and used primarily on special teams for his first couple of seasons in the league, but he really blossomed in 2023 and 2024 under defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Metellus is listed as a safety, yes, but as you can see by this graphic, he's really a Swiss Army knife in that Vikings defense as he lines up all over the field. And then another player that got taken care of by his team yesterday was Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. They inked him to a 4-year, $52 million extension that includes $30 million guaranteed and a $12 million signing bonus. Ferguson is coming off of a down year where he finished with less than 500 yards and had 0 touchdowns, but he also missed a few games between an MCL sprain to start the year and then a concussion later on. On top of that, Dak Prescott missed over half the year with his hamstring injury, so the offense as a whole really struggled. They have high hopes for a turnaround this year, though. Mike McCarthy's out, Brian Schottenheimer's in, as is George Pickens, plus Dak is healthy, so they are really expecting a lot out of this passing attack. And while we await to see if the Cowboys get a long-term deal done with Micah Parsons sooner rather than later, we do need to stick with some Cowboys news because they had a pretty scary injury take place yesterday. According to Adam Schefter, guard Rob Jones broke a bone in his neck during practice on Sunday and is now expected to miss around 2 to 3 months. That's a tough break for both the Cowboys and Jones, who they just signed to a 1-year deal in the offseason. It is early, but he was getting at least some first-team looks in camp, mixing in and out with Tyler Booker. And now with this injury, it appears Booker, the 12th overall pick from this year's draft, will be out there with the starters to open the season. Unfortunately, the news for the Cowboys O-line keeps trending in not so great direction when, during practice today, Tyler Guyton went down to the ground. That's their left tackle. He walked gingerly off the field, and then we just found out a couple hours ago, so late this afternoon, that the fear around the building was that he potentially tore his ACL. So obviously that is horrible news. A guard with the broken bone in his neck and the left tackle out for the season. Well, we did get a little bit of good news here that I just wanted to update before we exported this video, and he has a bone fracture that will not require surgery, and he is now expected to be out 4 to 6 weeks. That is a much better case than a 9 to 12 month recovery timeline of an ACL. But another broken bone, a broken bone in a knee, is an interesting one, but hey, crisis averted at least from a season-long standpoint for the Cowboys with their left tackle. And honestly, the injuries keep going because over the weekend, Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks, he fractured his collarbone. So we all knew that he was going to miss the season. Well, they just waived him with an injury designation, and if he clears waivers, basically he'll revert to IR. Maybe they can reach an injury settlement with him, and then he's free to sign wherever. But again, you're out for the season. This trade did not work. Obviously, this draft pick, rather, did not work. This is the guy that the Titans basically traded A.J. Brown away to the Eagles for traded him away on draft night, and then drafted Treylon Burks, and it has not worked out to say the least. So sadly, those injuries I just talked about are far from the only players to suffer a serious injury during training camp. The 49ers had quite the injury scare on Sunday after defensive end Tarron Jackson went down following a collision on a play. Jackson was reportedly motionless before finally moving his hands as the team all dropped to a knee and went silent for 6 minutes while the cart came and stretchered him off the field. After that, he was taken to the hospital, and Kyle Shanahan did say that he started to get movement in his extremities, and it appears that he avoided any sort of serious injury. Great news there. Jackson has been on the Niners practice squad since January and was fighting to make the Niners 53-man roster, but more important than that, I hope he's able to make a full recovery ASAP. Then unfortunately, we've seen a couple different guys go down with the dreaded ACL tear. Bucs coach Todd Bowles confirmed with the media today that this is what happened with rookie edge rusher David Walker. Walker was a 4th-round pick back in April and figured to get a decent amount of playing time working in beside Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby. It's just a bummer because he was reportedly standing out so far during camp, but now he'll have to watch his team from the sidelines as he rehabs and aims to come back stronger in 2026. And then Cardinals cornerback Starling Thomas V suffered the same injury on Friday, with the Cards putting him on season-ending injured reserve yesterday. Thomas started 15 games for Arizona last season, allowing 32 catches for 434 yards and 3 touchdowns. Thankfully, the Cardinals have plenty of depth at the position, though, with former second-round pick Max Melton heading into year 2, and then they drafted another corner in the 2nd round this year in Will Johnson. They've got other veterans in the mix as well, but you always hate to see players go down like that. I'm also hoping the best for running back Joe Mixon, who was placed on the non-football injury list with a foot injury he's been trying to work through. That part we already knew, but on Saturday it was reported that he's now expected to miss an extended period of time with a frustrating foot injury. Mixon will likely miss most or maybe even all of training camp and will be reevaluated closer to the season to determine his availability. That's a tough blow for the Texans offense, who leaned on him as their bell cow last year, but now at 29 years old with 8 NFL seasons under his belt, this is sadly the point in a lot of running backs' careers where their bodies don't hold up the way they used to. Nick Chubb is another guy who knows that all too well, but he's going to be counted on as the RB1 while Mixon rehabs his foot. Damian Pierce and J.J. Taylor opened up camp on the PUP list as well, so after Chubb, rookie Woody Marks is the next man up. And then Browns quarterback Kenny Pickett reportedly tweaked his hamstring during practice on Saturday and is set to miss a bit of time because of it. Initially, it was reported that he would be re-evaluated later this week, but Kevin Stefanski spoke with the media today and said that there is no timetable for Pickett to return at the moment. It's a bummer for Pickett because he was coming off of some really strong practices and was in contention for the QB1 spot. As of now, it looks like Joe Flacco's job to lose, with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, of course, being in the mix as well. But if Pickett can return here sooner rather than later, I'm going to throw his name right back into the hat. So while Pickett won't be practicing, somebody who was back at practice is Justin Fields. Late last week, he got his foot stepped on and dislocated a toe, which at the time was actually welcomed news because initial reports said he was carted off with a lower leg injury. Still, though, we were unsure of when he would be able to get back out there at practice, but he's fully back and participated in 11-on-11 drills today for the first time since the injury last Thursday. Another quarterback worth talking about is Baker Mayfield, and that's because the Bucs reworked his contract today in order to give him some additional guarantees to his contract. Baker has 2 years remaining on his current deal, but the 2026 season did not include any guaranteed money. That was until today when they added $30 million in guarantees to that year. Pretty awesome for Baker and cool that the team did that. I think he's shown them enough in 2 seasons to make them feel comfortable about giving him that security. Both years in Tampa, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards and led them in the playoffs, beating the Eagles in the 2023 wildcard round as well. Then last year was his best season yet, throwing for 4,500 yards on the nose and tossing a career-high 41 touchdowns. If he keeps up that level of play, don't be surprised to see him get a fat extension from Tampa next year. After all, he just turned 30 and should have plenty of solid years left in the tank. Someone who got an extension today was Broncos wide receiver Courtland Sutton. Denver made him a little wealthier with a 4-year, $92 million extension. Sutton was heading into the final year of his deal, and talks of an extension had been ongoing for a while now, with things actually getting finalized today. At $23 million per year, Sutton is now tied with Calvin Ridley as the 16th highest paid receiver in the league. That feels like pretty solid value for the Broncos. I mean, Sutton has led them in receiving 4 out of the 7 years he's been in the league and is fresh off of his best year yet. In 2024, he had a career-high 81 catches for 1,081 yards and 8 touchdowns, lots of 8s. I think it's smart to get him locked up. He showed great chemistry with Bo Nix last year after all, so this should only help the second-year quarterback. Of course, the eyebrow raiser here is that this is a 4-year extension for a receiver that is 29, soon to be 30, and that's why I really want to see how much guaranteed money is involved, because I have a feeling there will be an out after a couple of years. And now that time has gone by, we do know the guarantees of Sutton's contract. It's actually $41 million, so under half of this contract is guaranteed. Definitely some funny money at the end of that contract, maybe even the last 2 years. Now, a receiver that this Courtland Sutton deal could actually complicate things for is Terry McLaurin, and I'll explain why here in a second. But first, Terry finally did show up to Commanders training camp yesterday, though he's engaging in a hold-in, so not practicing while he waits for a new deal. In fact, he was placed on the PUP list with an ankle injury, but I have a feeling if he signed a contract today, that ankle would be good to go. Nonetheless, he's there and could be seen signing autographs for some fans, and apparently even told them, "My beef isn't with y'all, I love y'all." His beef is with the front office, but to be honest, it doesn't sound like it's going to end anytime soon, because Adam Schefter appeared on the Pat McAfee show today and reported that Scary Terry wants, quote, considerably more than DK Metcalf's $33 million per year. That's sparking a lot of debate even amongst Commanders fans, with not all of them being convinced that Terry is worth that kind of money. DK is the 4th highest paid receiver after all, and I guess I'm curious what considerably more means, because you've got Jamar at the top making $40 a year, then you've got JJ at 35 and CeeDee Lamb at 34. On top of that, Courtland Sutton getting such a team-friendly deal today could make things tricky. McLaurin has been more consistent over his career than Sutton has for sure, posting 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, while Sutton only managed to top that number twice in his career. But they're both the same age and operate as the number 1 wideout on their respective teams, so there is some comparison to be made here. Terry will get more than Courtland Sutton, there's no question about that, but will he get more than DK Metcalf and even some of those other guys I mentioned? You guys got to let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. The Scary Terry news was not the only thing that Shefty talked about on McAfee's show today either. Perhaps the wildest thing that came up during his appearance was the story about Christian Wilkins. The Raiders shockingly released Wilkins last week and voided over $35 million in future guarantees on his contract. This is just 1 year after signing him to that massive deal. They did that because he allegedly refused to get surgery on his foot that he injured just 5 weeks into last season, and because of that, it didn't heal properly, and he still wasn't healthy for training camp. Wilkins, in turn, filed a grievance with the NFLPA and is contesting that in an attempt to get the money back. So that's where things were at, but today Schefter revealed some pretty wild behind-the-scenes info after he spoke with some people inside the Raiders building.
They say that Christian playfully went to kiss a teammate on top of his head. That player took offense to it. So that's what everybody's been dancing around and tap dancing around, an incident in the locker room.
This is crazy. Pat actually asked Schefter if it was a situation where the player who Wilkins kissed, can't believe I'm even talking about this, went to HR and complained about the incident, and Schefter said, quote, "I think that would be a fair and accurate way of saying things. Yeah. First of all, I want to know who this teammate was that received the smooch from Christian. Are we talking about Max Crosby here? If so, he's definitely not putting up with that. But what if he actually kissed the bald spot on Brock Bowers' head? Either way, this is hilarious, but the interesting part to me is Shefty said everyone has kind of been dancing around this incident, which leads me to believe it ended up being a pretty big deal for whatever reason and could have potentially played a role in his release. It at least seemed like the straw that finally broke the camel's back. If that's the case, I wonder if that would be part of his argument against them voiding his contract, but who really knows? It's not like the foot injury was made up or anything like that either. He was in a walking boot earlier this offseason, then started training camp on the PUP list. It's just a very weird situation all around, and it's a very Raiders situation, if I'm going to be honest. I'll be curious to see if we get any more information out of this. But let me know what you think about this story and where you believe the truth actually lies in the comments below. And then this was kind of wild, but wide receiver running back Cordarrelle Patterson was released by the Steelers this morning. How do we know? Well, because he himself broke the news on X, posting from his own account saying, "Breaking news, Pittsburgh Steelers released old, washed-up Cordarrelle Patterson on his day off." That's a funny way to go about announcing it, but I mean, he is 34 years old with his usage on offense dipping the past 2 years. He had just 434 total yards across 2023 and 2024 combined. At his peak, he was one of the greatest returners the game has ever seen, as he has the most kickoff return touchdowns in NFL history and the longest kickoff return in NFL history. But with his best days behind him and being recently released, this still might not be over for Patterson after all. Mike Garafolo doesn't think this is the end of the road for his playing career, so maybe we'll see the former first-round pick sign with another squad here in the coming days. A move we've been monitoring for a while now is where will tight end Noah Fant sign after the next couple of days. The Seahawks released him earlier this month to save some money, and he's already met with the Bengals and the Saints, but a third team he's meeting with today is the Miami Dolphins, a move I like for them more than trading for the retired Darren Waller after trading away Jonnu Smith to the Steelers. Who knows if Fant actually lands there, as I'm assuming he's going to want the best deal possible out of all the teams he's meeting with, but it's definitely worth keeping eyes on. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.